Afternoon, Simon and Phil here, and Paul. I don't know where I keep getting the name Phil from. Maybe he looks like a bit like a Phil, I suppose.
Phil Collins, perhaps.
No comment. As you know, we got our guest on today, Josephine Grahl. One of the Newham's local activists who set up the Newham Voting for Change and the campaign for committee system. You will find her eloquent and articulate. I don't think we need anything else, but I'll bring Josephine in now. And how are you this morning, Josephine?
Yeah, not bad, Simon. Thanks for having me.
Jolly good. You heard the introduction. Do you want to start with how did you initially get involved in the committee system, or in the first place?
Well, I'm a Newham resident, and obviously, when Roxana Fiaz was elected as Mayor of Newham in 2018, she had a manifesto pledge to hold a referendum on the directly elected mayoral model. And your listeners with longer memories will remember that we had a referendum nearly 20 years ago to decide whether to have a directly elected mayor in Newham, and that's when the mayor was brought in.
Yeah, funny enough, Paul Schaefer in here with me today actually reminded me of that. Didn't think about it and reminded me of that event as well. So sorry, Josephine, for interrupting. Go ahead.
No, that's fine. Robin Wales was the first directly elected Labour mayor of a local authority in the country. But then obviously when Roxana was elected in 2018, she made a commitment to have a new referendum. Because obviously 20 years later, things changed, the world's changed. It's healthy to see whether the mayoral model is still the right model for Newham. And when we knew there was going to be a referendum, a few of us, councillors, residents, people who've been involved in Newham politics for a while, thought we'd like to campaign for the committee structure, and I'll be talking to you about why I think that is and why I think that's important.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, it's glad you mentioned Roxana Fiaz put that in her original manifesto. I distinctly remember I was in the counting, in the cycle stadium during that long evening during the account, and when victory was confirmed that Roxana Fiaz was going to be our the new mayor of Newham, it was part of her opening speech that she was going to put in place a referendum. So it's very positive that something she originally said from the word go, we're now having on, I think it's May the 6th, isn't it?
Yeah, I think it's really positive, and Mayor Fiaz has been really committed, I think, to looking at democracy in Newham and really addressing whether the council is running as best it should. So she set up the Democracy Commission, and that involved talking to residents and hearing from experts in local government about the best ways that local councils should run. Yeah. And obviously the council has committed to holding a referendum which will now take place on the 6th of May 2021, so just under 3 months' time.
Yeah. The same day we will be going along to vote for City Hall mayor elections as well in London. Yep,
all on the same day. And for anyone who's in East Town Central, there's a council by-election on that day as well.
Oh, of course there is, yes. I was aware of that. Thank you for reminding our listeners that that's happened. And I had clean forgotten about that, but obviously was totally aware, was it? So, do you want to briefly explain the main differences between the current system of directly elected and the committee system, if I can ask you?
Yeah. So, by law, there's only 3 ways that local governments can operate. So there's the directly elected mayor, and that's what we currently have.
Yeah.
And the mayor has, well, let's face it, the mayor has all the power. The directly elected mayor has a lot of executive power. Yeah. And of the councillors, the 60 Newham councillors, if they want to challenge one of the mayor's decisions, they need a 2/3 majority to overturn a decision made by the mayor. The second way is the leader cabinet, which is quite like the directly elected mayor, but instead of being directly elected by the public, the council leader is elected by the councillors, so they hold the same kind of executive power as a mayor.
Yeah.
And the third way is the committee structure. So we, the public, elect our councillors, and then every councillor sits on one of the major committees, which covers one of the main areas that the council deals with, and the decisions are made by the committees. So usually there's a committee for education, for health, transport, housing, planning.
Yes, so separate committees for all. So,
and the committee, just interject, the committees are chosen, the heads of the committees are chosen by the councillors. So like the scrutiny situation there is at the moment. Yeah,
the councillors elect who of them is going to sit on which committee. So it's different from the current cabinet structure, where it's the mayor who appoints, the lead member for housing or the lead member for health. So
it's the councillors who decide on who's going to be leading the relevant committee, which clearly is a more open way to go, isn't it? And I assume, obviously, it's the councillors as well, not just the cabinet, whoever they're going to be in the future. If it goes that way, the members, or just the mayor as he currently is. The manifesto is put out as an agreement amongst all elected members, if you like.
Yeah, the manifesto comes out from the majority party. Obviously, in Newham, the majority party for a long time, indeed the only party at the moment, has been the Labour Party. And then the committees hold the responsibility for their own individual areas.
Oh, I've got you. Yeah. So it's clearly a lot more open, isn't it? And other reasons why you think it's more open, if I could ask Josephine?
Yeah, well, I think it makes decision-making more transparent.
Yeah.
And I have to say again, I think Mayor Fiaz has done some really positive things to make the council more transparent and to get people more involved in how decisions are made in local government. So we've had citizens' assemblies, we've got our council meetings are online, so you can watch that.
Yeah, I've watched some of those.
Yeah, some of them are quite entertaining, I have to say.
The main thing, again, is that the accountability is there. It's not just one person.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. The committee structure goes further because every councillor has a say in the decision making. So at the moment, your local councillor could be elected, but if they're not a cabinet member, they don't really have
much input
into what decisions are made. And it's not about individuals. Both Mayor Roxana and Mayor Robin Wales did some really good things. Mayor Roxana had some really great achievements. But it's just not very democratic to give one person so much power over the way the council is run. And so instead, the committee structure means that decisions are taken more collectively by the 60 councillors, or when we get the new council boundaries next year, 66 councillors.
Yes,
and they all have input. They all bring their own experience, their own, employment experience, life experience, and they all bring a sort of representative view of the residents in their particular areas.
Yeah, I've got you. I don't want to put you on the spot or anything, Josephine, but a listener, believe it or not, has actually sent me a direct SMS message, and an interesting question, and it relates. I'll read it to you and let me know your thoughts on it. 88% of respondents to the public consultation opposed vehicle emission-based charging, but the councillors voted for it anyway. Why would a council and committee system change anything for residents? So what I think the question they're getting at is, how would it be dealt with if we were running under a committee system?
Well, one of the things we've been doing as part of the campaign for a committee structure is we've been talking to councillors in other boroughs where they already have a committee system.
Yeah.
And one of the things that they've said is that they think it's a more cooperative way to work. So we've already talked about every councillor sits on a committee, they all bring the views
to the table.
Top down. But there's also, because you've got a committee system, you can invite along interested stakeholders, community groups who have a particular position on a way a decision is made. Committees can hear from experts and on the one hand, different points of view. And so, there's a more deliberative way of making decisions where you can hear from experts, you can hear from the community, and also, every councillor is accessible to their residents, and the residents can go directly to the councillors and kind of put their views on the different things that are made. I mean, I don't think that necessarily means that you'll always get decisions made by councils which all residents are happy with. That's
it's not going to happen.
There's always going to be some hard decisions that some people aren't going to like, and parking and transport decisions and low traffic neighbourhoods are often quite controversial.
Yes.
But sometimes that means that, if on the one hand you've got people in the community who say this is really difficult, but you've got other groups who say, well, we like the low traffic neighbourhood, or experts who say it's actually really important that local councils do stuff to address
climate change,
air pollution and climate change, then committees will still have to balance those ideas, and no one's ever going to be happy. You're never going to get everyone being happy with every decision made.
But
it's a bit more open and a bit more kind of cooperative.
Yeah, I think that's the main objective, isn't it? Every councillor, in effect, is going to be more accountable and have to be more actively involved in all manner of things. It's not if you're just a non-cabinet member but a councillor. It's not just going to be a case of you're holding your weekly or twice weekly surgeries. You'll be more hands-on with what's going on in any London borough, obviously London Borough and Newham. So
I think, sorry,
go on, Paul,
if I can interrupt. I think we should be mindful this time round. I came in as a councillor in 2002 under that referendum of mayor rather than committee, and we found afterwards, quite a few of us found afterwards, that local folk thought that we were voting for what I call the three-cornered hat mayor, the man wearing or the woman wearing the ermine stole, potentially the bell ringer, which is the ceremonial mayor. And I think people were under the impression they were voting to keep that. And I think that this time round we should make it clear that's not what you're voting for. You're not voting for a ceremonial mayor. That will come with the committee structure. That will come back again, rather than the civic ambassador that was put in place straight after the elected mayor was brought in. But to make sure there's no misunderstanding on what people are voting for, somehow get it out, that message out there. I don't know if it's going to be put on a piece of paper or a pamphlet or whatever, advertised. But you're not voting for the guy who goes around sort of opening events and kissing babies and stuff. That ain't the one you're voting for, which is the kind of historic mayor that everybody thinks about. So back in 2002, that's what the response was to a lot of people when we went, we got an elected mayor, like Giuliani in New York was the explanation. And it was like, I didn't know he was voting for that, I thought he was voting for this guy with the hat and the bell kind of thing, and so we need to be mindful that we get the understanding of the public that this is what you're voting for, not this other thing that you voted for before. Sorry, I interrupted.
Yeah, go ahead,
sorry,
Josephine. Go ahead.
Yeah, no, I think that's very true. But I suppose this time at least, people do know what the mayor is. I think both Robin Wells and Roxana Fias are very publicly minded and are out there in the community, and I think most Newham residents know who their mayor is. And so what we need to be clear about is we're talking about power. The mayor really holds an awful lot of power. They're not just the chain-wearing, hand-shaking person.
No.
They're actually, they have responsibility for most of the political decisions made by the council. And so, when we're talking about diversifying that power and sharing it out and making it a bit more cooperative, I think we need to be very clear. We're talking about power, and in a big borough like Newham, with a, several £billion turnover, it's a lot of power, and it makes a big difference how decisions are made, whether the right decisions are made, whether the community feel engaged and involved in how those decisions are made and feel that their councillors are really representing them. That's really important.
Yeah, so what you're basically saying, Josephine, the committee system is going to be an awful lot more open, more opportunity for citizens, experts and communities to have their say and have an influence on a particular decision on whatever the subject matter may be,
and the person who you want to be put in that position. So you'll put your councillor in, and your councillor then in return will put the person in they vote for to be head of that committee. Whereas at the moment, the mayor chooses whoever they want to be that cabinet member.
In the cabinet,
you could have your auntie if you wanted. Or
well, only if they were elected in the first place.
No, they don't have to, no. They don't have to be elected. They don't have to be elected.
I'm not sure on that one, Paul, but Josephine, over to you on that question, I think.
I'm not sure if the mayor can appoint her auntie to the cabinet unless they're an elected councillor. But it's exactly true that the mayor selects the cabinet, and obviously Mayor Fiaz has delegated some of her executive power to the cabinet, and that's great. But that's the individual mayor's decision. You know, we could get a different mayor next time around who says, no, I want to hold it all to myself and I'll take full responsibility, the buck stops with me, kind of thing.
Yeah.
And I think that actually that leads to real, I think people elect their councillors, they go to the polls every 4 years and elect their councillors, and they elect them on the basis that they think they're going to have a say in decision making.
Yes.
And that they're going to, they hear from them on the doorstep or campaigning for votes on what they believe in and what they want to do. But actually, a lot of the councillors effectively don't have much say in how the council is run at all. And I think that's something that we need to be stressing in referendum.
It's going to make it easier in the council of surgeries if the committee system does come into fruition, isn't it? Because if you're holding a surgery and there's a housing matter or refuse matter, as a council you're going to have more knowledge on certain subject matters because you're automatically more involved in the committee system, which means you should be able to do a better job potentially for the constituents sitting in front of you that needs help with something, aren't you?
Yeah, and the information you pick up in your surgeries or when you're talking to your residents, your members of the public, will enable councillors to take that back to the committee and say, well, an awful lot of people are asking me this about schools, and is this a problem that we need to address? Or, I'm getting a lot of queries about this, about temporary accommodation, and so is that something that the council needs to look at more clearly? Yeah. And rather than just making representations to the relevant cabinet member, they will actually have a decision-making role themselves. Yeah,
for example, I suppose if one particular council gets an awful lot of residents coming in on one particular subject, that council then can push through the committee system to try and get something changed or done to address that situation. It's more likely to happen under the committee system, isn't it, as well, I think?
Yeah, I think it's more representative, and it means that all of those 60 or 66 councillors, as they will be, will have areas where they can bring back the real feelings and experiences of their residents into the decision-making process of the council, and I think that's really important.
It's really important, isn't it? We're going to take our first break, Josephine, so you would hear some nice tuneful songs and some adverts in your headphones, and when we come back, I think it's, if I may with you, talk about accountability in regards to councillors within the committee system, so we give you a few moments to think about that, and we move over to a break.
Great.
We're facing the biggest health challenge of our generation, and we've shown that together we're stronger than ever. But to keep making a difference, we need to support each other. If you're a man and you've had coronavirus recently, then you might just have the antibodies to help save lives in your blood plasma. That's why we urgently need men to donate. Giving blood plasma is safe and easy. Be the difference. Search Donate Plasma or call 0300 123 2323 today.
Thinking about selling or letting your home? With Maxwell Estates, you don't need to look any further. Well established with over 15 years of experience, Maxwell Estates are specialists in residential sales and lettings. We manage over 200 properties in and around Northwest London, keeping our landlords and tenants updated with all the latest laws and legislations. Based in Edgware, our experienced specialist negotiators always ensure we maximise the full potential of your property. Call us now on 0208 952 0808 for a free no-obligation quotation, or visit our website www.maxwellestates.co.uk for further information. Maxwell Estates, the name you can trust.
The new variant of COVID-19 is spreading fast. Around 1 in 3 people with COVID-19 don't have any symptoms but can still pass it on, putting people at risk of serious disease and renewing pressure on our NHS. Vaccines give clear hope for the future, but the rising infection rate requires action now. Once more, we must all stay home. If it's essential to go out, remember, wash your hands, cover your face, and make space. Stay home. Protect the NHS. Save lives.
मिनहाज वेलफेयर फाउंडेशन में आपका अतिया जिंदगी की उम्मीद आपकी मदद से मुमकिन हुआ दुनिया भर में 30 लाख से ज्यादा खवातीन बुजुर्गों और बच्चों तक साफ पानी की फ्राहमी मुतासरा इलाकों में हंगामी इमदाद यतीम और बेसहारा बच्चों की दादरसी इस साल हम आपके ताउन से और आगे बढ़ना चाहते हैं अपनी ज़कात सदकात और खैरात के जरिए इन मंसूबों का हिस्सा बनिए अभी कॉल कीजिए 0300 3030 777 या हमारी वेबसाइट विजिट करें www.minhajwelfare.org
देखें जी गवर्नमेंट ने बोला है कि हमें घर रहिए बाहर नहीं जाना चाहिए कि वायरस की वजह से इसका मतलब यही है कि भाई कुछ भी हो आप घर रहें अगर जरूरत पड़े बाहर जाने की तो बिल्कुल सिर्फ जो
Could you look an intensive care nurse in the eyes and tell them you're staying at home? If you really need to go out, do you wash your hands the moment you get back? If you have to let someone in, like an emergency plumber, do you always open your windows to let in fresh air? Anyone can catch COVID-19. Anyone can pass it on. If we all stick to the rules, we can help stop the spread. Stay home. Protect the NHS. Save lives.
Rosia Plumbing, the boiler specialists. We do new boiler installations, full house central heating systems, underfloor heating, boiler repairs, boiler servicing and gas safety certification for landlords. With some of the best prices in town, there's no job too big or too small for our qualified engineers. For a free, no obligation quote, contact us now on 07956 282 948. Rosia Plumbing, the boiler specialists.
ReviveFM
94.0 on the radio,
on your mobile
and online.
Hi, welcome back, Josephine. I think just before the break I mentioned the word accountable with regard to councillors. If you want to explain what I mean by that.
Well, as we've already said, one of the main things is that councillors will have more input into the decision-making process. And what that means is it's going to be clear which councillors are making which decisions on which topics. And so when it comes to accountability, I think it's going to be important that councillors are able to defend the decisions they make.
Yeah.
And like I said, you know, if you've got a decision-making process where you can involve the community, but you could also hear from experts or, you know, other councils who've done similar projects, if it's, for example, if we're talking about low-traffic neighbourhoods or community wealth building, sharing that information, councillors are going to need to be informed about what they're making decisions on, and they're going to need to be able to go back to their, you know, it's a two-sided coin, isn't it?
Yeah, isn't it, Just?
If your councillor gets that ability to have full input into the decisions on the committee they're making, they're also going to need to be able to come back to the public and say, this is what I voted for and this is why I stand by it.
Yeah,
whereas obviously with the mayor, you can pass the buck. You can say, well, you know, I put my view, but the mayor said, the mayor said this,
So in effect, the 60 or 66 says when the borough changes come in at some point, councillors won't be able to hide. They'll be just as accountable as, in effect, you know, Roxana Fies now, isn't it?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, there's one thing I want to tackle, which we often hear when we're talking about the committee structure, and what people ask is, doesn't it become very slow, or is it possible that things get tied up in committees and decisions never really get made? And I think that's something that's important to talk about, because I think, first of all, that's not backed up by research. There's a study by Maidstone Council which found that decisions in committee systems can actually be faster.
Yes.
Because, you know, you've got a group of people who know what they're talking about, who are connected to their communities, who've thought through the issues. Decisions can be faster. But the other thing I want to stress is it's important not just that decisions are made quickly, but also that they're the right decision.
Yes, of course. Yeah, I suppose under the current pandemic, I think Newham's done pretty well under the pandemic conditions. We all struggled. It was all new to us, but things could have been put out slightly quicker under the committee system, couldn't it, I think?
Well, I think generally the council's response to COVID has been really, really strong.
It has been,
in very, very, very difficult circumstances. And of course, in all committee structure councils, there will also be provision for urgent decision making, because there's always unforeseeable things.
Yes, of course.
Decisions have been made quite fast. And for example, the first few weeks of the pandemic last year, that would have been a situation where, decisions about closing council services, about support for residents during the pandemic, they do need to be made fast. And there's always, in every committee structure council, a provision for emergency decision making when, something really needs to be dealt with extremely fast.
Yeah.
But I think on a lot of council issues, sometimes what we see under the current regime is, a decision gets made and then, it turns out that's problematic or people don't like it, and then it's reviewed at short notice. And then sometimes I think it's important to make sure that when you take action, you know that that's going to be the right action, and you've heard from people before that decision is made. And I think that's a really important aspect of the
which is more likely to happen within the committee structure, isn't it? And I've got another question that has come into me. I don't know what's going on today. It's an interesting one to a degree, but I'm not sure how you're going to answer it, to be honest with you. But if you can't, because we don't know at the moment, and that's fine as well. The question is basically, how easy is it to remove a defunct councillor in a committee model? I think what whoever the person is suggesting is, if there's a councillor that is basically doing very little in their duty as a councillor for the constituents, is there a system to remove that councillor, or do we have to wait the full term like currently for further elections so another councillor replaces that person?
Well, I think you have to remember, first of all, it's great that you're getting questions. I'm really glad that people are interested in this, because sometimes local government, you're sort of thinking, sometimes it doesn't sound like the most glamorous, exciting thing, but it is so important. The council controls so much that affects our day-to-day lives, that it's really important that people are interested in how the council is run. But on that question, councillors under the committee system have the same checks and balances as they do under the current system. And under the current system, there are provisions. So if a councillor doesn't turn up to a meeting for 6 months, or, without a good reason, obviously not if they have health issues or serious things, but if they are simply just not turning up, there are ways of disciplining and in the end removing them, and because it is a responsibility. Councillors are there to represent the public. They do have a responsibility to turn up and do this job. But that doesn't change under the committee structure. The responsibilities of councillors are the same. What changes is where that power lies within the council. But at the moment, if there were a councillor who didn't turn up to a council meeting for a period of time, there's already a system of checks and balances
is in place. I think that there's less likelihood in the future as well of, under the committee system, of councillors simply ignoring requests, what some may perceive as awkward residents keep coming back with the same questions and things of that nature, or why haven't you done this, or I think it's under the potential committee system, that's less likely to happen, is because the councillors have to be more open. They won't have any choice but to address whatever comes across in front of them. I think I'm right on that, aren't I?
Yeah, I would hope so. I would hope that most of our councillors are pretty responsible anyway.
Yes, of course.
About decision making anyway, and about their responsibility to their residents. And of course, I think sometimes Newham's a big place, decisions can be slow anyway, and bringing in change can be difficult in a big organisation like Newham Council. It's not always as fast as you might want it to be. But yeah, I think what's important about the committee structure is the councillors individually will take more of a share of responsibility for the decisions that are made, and will be answerable to their residents on those things.
Yeah, and I think we need to stress, and I think you've already have stressed it, that come election day, on referendum day, on City Hall election day, and by-election day in East Ham Central, it's important that everybody goes out to vote. Myself as a normal type citizen, one of my personal bugbears is when people go, but I don't like what they're doing, I don't know what that person's doing. Well, did you go and vote? Well, I couldn't be bothered.
Yeah, I mean, like I've said, I think it's so important that people do follow what the local council is doing and do take an interest in local government, because the council is responsible for so much that affects everything that we do day to day, the streets, healthcare, social care, education of children, social services. All of those things are so important. And as you say, if you don't go out and vote, you're not having a say in how the council runs. But when you say go out to vote, I want to say as well, obviously the government have now confirmed that the elections on the 6th of May will be going ahead. So as it's a big election day across the country, elections in for the Scottish and Welsh governments as well, but elections for the London Assembly and for the Mayor.
Yeah.
One thing that I think it's really important to say is that people can get a postal vote, and although the government are putting provisions in place to make sure that polling stations will be as COVID safe as possible, one positive thing that I think a lot of people can do is just register for a postal vote. You can do it online on the Newham Council website. And that means that, you know, you get your vote, you can vote from the comfort of your own home.
Yeah, I think I'm going to actually do that as well, especially if the weather is not the best on election day, and because we all have to be COVID safe as well. If you go down to the polling booth at the wrong time, you may have a slightly longer wait than normal, and we don't want to lose potential voters because they've just wandered off because they can't be bothered. So yeah, I would advocate.
Yeah, I think if you're talking to people about the elections that are happening on the 6th of May, then asking people to register for a postal vote is really important for all of those elections, including the referendum. And of course, if you forget to post it, which, you know, no one's perfect, you can always just drop your postal ballot into the polling booth on the day.
Yes, that's true, isn't it? And another question that comes in, and it's a strange question, because it's a simple answer, which I think as a presenter on here, I think I can probably manage answer, and you can tell me off if I'm wrong. The question is, what happens if voters decide to continue with directly elected mayoral system? And I think the simple answer is, as we are today, is the simple answer, is it not?
Nothing changes. So if the committee structure wins in the referendum, if you have a look at the Newham Council website, they've now published their plans.
Oh, right, good. Can I hold you... Can I hold you there for a second, because the times escape me as per usual. We need to break for an advert break so we can pay some of our bills. Let's continue with this when we come back in a few moments, if that's okay with you, Josephine.
Yeah, great.
Thank you.
क्या आपको मालूम है कि नूरा जैसी बच्चियां पानी के लिए रोजाना 3 मील पैदल सफर तय करती हैं? मिनहाज वेलफेयर फाउंडेशन को यकीन है कि आप छोटे और बड़े पैमाने पर पानी के मंसूबे लगाकर इस बहरान को खत्म कर सकते हैं। आपके एहतियात दुनिया भर के पसमानदा लोगों का म्यार जिंदगी बेहतर बना रहे हैं, जबकि अभी बहुत कुछ करना बाकी है। पानी सबके लिए के प्रोजेक्ट में हमारी मदद कीजिए। आज ही अतिया कीजिए या हमारी वेबसाइट विजिट करें www.minhajwelfare.org।
Here at Duncan Lewis Solicitors, we specialize in immigration and family law. We have a proven track record of successful applicants who we've helped secure permanent residency for. From spouse visas to seeking asylum, our expert advisors will assist you throughout the whole application process. We offer a free no obligation consultation, so call us now on 0208 432 3350. That's 0208 432 3350. Or visit us at 298 Romford Road, London, E79HD.
Thinking about selling or letting your home? With Maxwell Estates, you don't need to look any further. Well established with over 15 years of experience, Maxwell Estates are specialists in residential sales and lettings. We manage over 200 properties in and around Northwest London, keeping our landlords and tenants updated with all the latest laws and legislations. Based in Edgware, our experienced specialist negotiators always ensure we maximize the full potential of your property. Call us now on 0208 952 0808 for a free no obligation quotation, or visit our website www.maxwellestates.co.uk for further information. Maxwell Estates, the name you can trust.
We're facing the biggest health challenge of our generation, and we've shown that together we're stronger than ever. But to keep making a difference, we need to support each other. If you're a man and you've had coronavirus recently, then you might just have the antibodies to help save lives in your blood plasma. That's why we urgently need men to donate. Giving blood plasma is safe and easy. Be the difference. Search Donate Plasma or call 0300 123 2323 today.
Could you look a bus driver in the eyes and tell them your journey is essential? That the thing you think you need to go into the office for couldn't be done from home? Do you always keep a safe distance and wear your face covering over your mouth and nose? The more often you go out, the more likely you are to come into contact with COVID-19. Are you sure you need to travel today? Stay home. Protect the NHS. Save lives.
Looking to get your finances in order? MR Accountants has you covered. We provide a full range of accountancy and taxation services, including annual and management accounts, self-assessment tax returns, VAT, bookkeeping and payroll services. We ensure you're kept up to date with the latest legislation, and our client-focused approach helps us plan your business finances from savings to investments. We are MR Accountants. Visit our website at mraccountants.com or call us on 0203 432 9138.
Minhaj School of Islamic Sciences provides quality Islamic education for children aged between 5 and 15 years old. As well as teaching classical Islam including Tajweed, Fiqh, Seerah and Aqidah, we endeavour to equip children with essential Islamic manners, morals and values. Here at MSIS, our experienced teachers create an inspirational learning environment where we strive to cater for the needs of every child. For enrolment inquiries, inquire in person at Minhaj School of Islamic Sciences, Monday to Friday, 5 to 7 p.m. at 292-296 Rumford Road, or email admin.edu_London@minhajuk.org.
Revive FM
94.0. On the radio.
On your mobile.
And online.
Welcome back, Josephine. Revive FM 94.0, as you just heard. I think we were just getting into something just before we had to take for a break. Believe it or not, everything goes mad at me on all the screens in front of me, basically ordering me to take an advert break. So I apologise for that, and let's continue on.
Great, yeah. No, where were we? I think we were talking about the council has now published its plans for the referendum.
Yes, I think you said it comes out some point this week. I couldn't swear to it, but I think you sort of said Wednesday, or is it already out?
No, that's on the council website already, and that sets out two things. One is the date of the referendum and some of the rules around campaigning and how that referendum will work. But the other thing that they've published is their plan if the committee structure wins, because obviously that would be a change.
Yes, of course, there's a question,
and
obviously.
They need to have a plan in place for how that will work, basically, from the day it takes effect. So if on the 6th of May 2021, Newham voters vote for the committee structure, that comes into effect a year later on the 9th of May 2022.
Yeah.
And the council have set out their plan for how that will work. So there'll be 4 committees: children, young people and education, inclusive economy and housing, adults and health, and environment and sustainable transport. There'll be a leader and deputy leader who are elected by the councillors, and it's full council, that is the council as a whole, the 66 councillors who have responsibility for agreeing the council budget, electing the leader and deputy leader, and agreeing the council's plan. So I encourage people to have a look at that, because it's an important document. It sets out exactly how that will work.
Yeah, I think I'll be having a good close look at it myself, so I'll be eagerly waiting for it come Wednesday.
But to go back to the question that your listener sent in, if the committee structure doesn't win at the referendum in May, then it will just continue as normal, and in the next local government elections in Newham, which are May 2022, there'll be an election for the mayor.
As in previously, and the word referendum, at least on this particular subject matter, will be gone for another decade, I would have said.
Right. Yeah, once this referendum has taken place, the council can't put the question again for another 10 years.
Yeah.
So it is really important because that's a binding decision for quite a long time.
Yes, isn't it?
So it's important that Newham voters are engaged, whether they're for the referendum, whether they're for the committee structure or for the mayor. It's really important they have a say, because after that referendum, we can't have that discussion again for another 10 years.
Yeah, no point moaning about whichever system comes through the referendum, that it's too late now, we didn't vote. That's it. Yeah,
you've missed your chance.
Yeah, so as I know you keep stressing, and I've stressed, and we keep stressing, is go out and vote, have your say, vote for change. At the end of the day, that's in effect what you're doing, is vote for change if you are pro the committee system, isn't it?
Yeah, that's right. And if you are interested in the committee system, I encourage you to look at our campaign website.
Go ahead.
We've got a website which is newhamforchange.org. We're on Twitter @4Newham, and we're on Facebook. If you look for Newham Voting for Change, we're on Facebook.
Yep.
And in a couple of weeks, we're going to be launching our fundraising campaign. Obviously, this is a very unusual election under COVID conditions, and we want to fundraise some money to make a video that we can put on social media about the benefits of the committee structure.
Yeah.
And we want to launch our word of mouth campaign. So we're trying to find ways of campaigning during COVID. We can't knock doors, we can't leaflet. So we want to have a word of mouth campaign where, if you support the committee structure, we encourage you to talk to your friends, your neighbours, your work colleagues, tell them about the referendum, encourage them to register for a postal vote, and basically try and pass on, have conversations about the issues, because, as we just said, once this referendum is gone, that's it for another 10 years.
Yeah, I've got you. Yeah, so, it's really important. It's fairly complicated it took me some time to get my head around what the difference between directly elected and committee system is. I assume the majority of us will also have that difficulty. So it's really important, to educate yourselves. Go and have a look at the sites Josephine has put out, which I'll put out just before 5 when we end the show. Have a look, understand the situation, because when you go to the ballot box or through your postal vote, when the votes come, when you time to vote, it's important to understand which way you're voting. I think that's really important, isn't it? We've all done it. I remember when I was 19, 20, and I'm one of those that's always voted. But in those days, you went for your party of choice, and you had no understanding of who you were actually voting for or why you were voting for that person. I think it's important to understand why you're in particular going for that reason, isn't it? And I think knowledge is very useful in this regard.
Yeah, definitely. And like I say, I think sometimes people think that local government is not very interesting. I actually think it's really interesting, and I think that the decisions made by our local councils and by our local councillors are so important to our quality of life, our children's quality of life, that it's important to know what's going on and have a view, whether you support the committee structure or whether you support the mayor. You need to be thinking about what the issues are and voting based on the issues.
Yeah, I think the final question that's come into me, or let's rephrase that, it's the last question I'm going to put out today, so we can obviously finish the way we want to finish it. The question is, will Roxana be neutral with regard to the referendum, or will she want to stand as directly elected mayor for a second term? It's quite an interesting question, that one, I think. And I understand, totally, if you have no idea, because at the end of the day, why would you? Our current Roxana's not going to share her thoughts with everybody at the minute, is she? And keep it for her to decide. Or...
Yeah, I mean, I think you'll have to ask the mayor.
Yeah.
As far as I know, her view has always been that she'll stay neutral on this, and that it's for the public of Newham to decide, which I think is a really a good position for the mayor to take, I think. But I would imagine, if the voters of Newham opt to keep the directly elected mayor, I'm sure Roxana will be standing again as the mayor.
Yes, you mentioned something earlier, and some people have been wondering. We're talking we mentioned fleetingly borough a few more councillors come up for election in 22 with boundary changes. And do you want to have a quick mention of what boundary changes are when it's coming in? Because I'm sure we've got plenty of listeners that possibly weren't even aware of boundary changes.
Yeah, I mean, this has been quite a long, an ongoing process. This isn't something that's done by the council, although the council have an input into the consultation. This is done by the Boundary Commission, which is a national body who makes sure that the boundaries are the right size and they're, a fair size.
So basically things change with population changes.
Exactly. So one of the issues we've got at the moment, I think, is that Stratford, because of all the Olympic development, is one of the biggest wards, I think, in the country, certainly in London.
I didn't realise that. It's amazing when you think, pre-2012, what it was like down there.
I mean, we all know how much Stratford has changed over the last sort of 10, 15 years. And so the idea behind the Boundary Commission is that council wards are roughly the same size. They've got the right number of councillors to take care of the residents without some councillors having a huge number of residents and some having somewhat less. So, as you'd expect, one of the big changes is that Stratford, as it currently is going to be split into 3 council wards. There's going to be a mix of 3 councillor wards and 2 councillor wards. And Stratford's not the only change. There's changes to quite a lot of the boundaries. So I won't go into all of them, but you can have a look on the Boundary Commission. If you Google Boundary Commission Newham, you can see what the changes are. And that's gone through a long period of consultation where residents and the Newham Council and political parties and have had the right to put in their views and explain why they think wards should be a certain size or a certain shape, or what they think the natural boundaries are, to make sure that, people who see themselves as part of a particular community stay in the same council ward. But those are now being completed, and so one of the changes is there's going to be 6 more councillors in Newham, and the ward you are currently in may not be the same as what you'll be in for the next council election, but it's worth going to have a look at the map.
It is for the changes. It's very important again to point out, and I know you stressed that point as well, Josephine, that yes, London Borough and Newham, as all borough councils, have had input into the boundary changes up and down the country, but it's important to remember the boundaries changes have been put out by the Commission, in effect, and it's not Newham or London Borough of Hackney saying, "Oi, we want boundary changes." So don't come and blame any particular borough. It's a lot bigger than that, and it's been run over at least between 2 and 4 years, hasn't it, where this has been looked into and adjusted as things have come up, hasn't it?
Yeah, that's right. And there's been, I think, 3 different sets of proposals, including the final proposal, which is now definite.
Yeah.
So, there's been a lot of back and forth about what's the right size, what's the right shape for the boundaries. And one of the things they take into consideration is future population growth. So they don't just look at the number of voters there are in an area today, but how big they'll be in 5 or 10 years' time. Yeah,
and we've got that very important thing called a census, which I believe starts in March, the thing we do every 10 years. As well, don't we? So, it's all going on this year, isn't it?
Yeah, it's a big year in Newham.
Yeah, isn't it just? Go on, what were you going to say, Josephine?
And of course, next year we've got the council election.
Of course we have.
May 2022 will be electing the 66 councillors.
Yeah. So we'll be back to the all good stuff. Time flies, doesn't it? It's quite amazing to think, how Roxana, this is her first term, and it seems to have flown by. Which quite I find that all very interesting. Before we go, because we've only got another few minutes, do you want to highlight the various sites and the things where people, or residents and obviously listeners, can go and have a look for themselves and get themselves involved if they want to as well with your campaign that's going on?
Yeah, definitely. Well, first of all, I'd say have a look at Newham Council website, because they've now published the notice of referendum, and that sets out all the details of how the referendum will work and how the committee structure will work if that's what's chosen by the residents of Newham. But from the campaign point of view, our website is at newhamforchange.org, newhamforchange.org,
yep.
Or you can find us on Twitter at @4Newham. Or if you search for Newham Voting for Change on Facebook, you'll find our Facebook page there. And there we try and, sort of put notice of our events and information about the committee structure that you can share with people. And, if you're in a trade union group or a community group and you'd be interested in having someone from the campaign come and talk to a meeting, then we'd be very happy to do something like that and tell Newham residents about, what the issues are and why it's so important they have a vote in this referendum.
Yes, absolutely. Thank you for that. And before I let you go, for balance, because obviously Revive FM is one that, like most radio stations, or I'd like to think most media outlets, but I'm going to have tongue-in-cheek when I suggest that, that if anyone from the directly elected mayoral system wants to come in and chat with myself or Dean, they're more than welcome to. You know how to get hold of me. Final word to you, Josephine.
Well, it's just really important to register to vote, to make sure you're getting a postal vote, and, to think about the issues involved and hopefully see the benefits of the committee structure and vote in the referendum on the 6th of May.
Brilliant, thank you. And yes, I do agree with you, the benefits of it as well. And thank you for coming on today and explaining how it all works, the committee system. No doubt we'll be in touch soon. Perhaps we'll have you back on again in the future with regards to this, or one of your people involved in the committee system campaign.
Right. Well, thank you for having me, and some great questions from your listeners as well.
Brilliant. Thank you. Take care. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Revive FM
94.0. On the radio.
On your mobile.
And online.